I'm going to go over this case. It's called Anthony Saia versus the Industrial Commission. It's the 10th District mandamus case. What ended up happening is this individual requested to participate in vocational rehabilitation, and ultimately his request was denied at the Industrial Commission. He filed mandamus. The mandamus was also denied, and they basically affirmed the decision of the magistrate or of the Industrial Commission. So, vocational rehabilitation, if you're not familiar with what that is, vocational rehabilitation is kind of a return to work program that you can participate in, or you may be able to participate in via your allowed workers' comp claim. The idea is to get you back to work. Maybe you can't do work in the former career that you did before the work injury, but now you do this job training, and then you're able to maybe transition to this other career. I think it's great. I mean, we've had some really great successes with claimants participating in the VOC program, vocational rehabilitation, and what will end up happening is your doctor will request that you participate in VOC, and then you'll be connected with a VOC rehab specialist. They'll evaluate you based upon your intelligence, your skill, your education level, and the allowed conditions in your claim, and they'll craft something. And they'll also ask what you might want to do, and they'll craft like a VOC program. So we've had people, and it could really be anything that the VOC specialist and you come up with. But we've had people that have gone on into HVAC repair, get associate's degree in X-ray, MRI, radio tech from Columbus State and OSU, and get jobs doing that stuff. We've had folks get various certification doing computer networking and IT related type tasks. I had an individual who received some kind of certification which allowed him to work in a weed grow situation. So I don't know what that involved, but that was paid. That certification that allowed him to get that job in the weed grow facility, he got that certification via the Ohio Workers' Comp Vocational Rehabilitation Program. And whilst all these folks are participating in VOC rehab, instead of getting temporary total disability, you get something called living maintenance benefit. So it's not a bad deal, and particularly if you're able to transition from, say, whatever you're doing to, say, an X-ray or MRI tech. So, anyways, so this guy wanted, he requested that, and what's important in the analysis of this particular case is this code section 4123-18-03, which goes to the elements you must have to participate in VOC, or at least be able to participate, and you must be found eligible and feasible. And these mean specific things. So eligibility in this case means there must be a significant impediment to employment or maintaining employment as a result of the allowed conditions in the claim. The injured worker must have received some form of compensation relative to their workers' comp claim, like a temporary total disability or C92 award, permanent partial disability award. They must have work restrictions. So if you're released to full duty, you're not going to be able to participate in VOC. So that's the eligibility element. And then you must also be feasible. So you might be eligible, but you might not be feasible. And if that's the case, you still don't get to participate. So to be feasible, you must be able to participate in vocational services. What would be an example of not being able to is, I don't know, for example, let's say, you suffered a severe traumatic brain injury, and you have cognitive impairments that would really impair your ability to learn new stuff. Well, you wouldn't be feasible. You wouldn't be able to participate in that. So you have to be able to participate in the VOC services, and then you must be willing to participate in VOC services. Why is this an element? I don't know, but apparently some of these doctors might request it, and the injured worker might say, I'm not actually interested. And then there must be a reasonable probability that the injured worker will benefit from VOC services, VOC rehab services. So, and that's where this guy's request failed, is that reasonable probability that the injured worker will benefit from VOC services. So what ended up happening was This guy was a construction worker for the city of Painesville, Ohio. In 2014, he suffered a work injury. Apparently, he continued to work with restrictions, and then in September 2019, his BWC doctor took him off work due to a flare-up of issues related to his allowed physical conditions. January 2020, so there was his doctor took him off work and obviously requested comp, and then in January 2020, comp was granted. February 2020, he had a total knee replacement, and then we jumped to May 2021. Comp was terminated, and he's found MMI, and then eventually he files to participate vote. One other detail, and this is important, is in October 2019, I'm assuming relative to that request for temporary total disability, it was noted by the independent medical evaluator that he had retired from working for Painesville, Ohio. So, and keep that detail in your mind, because it's going to have a significant impact on what ended up happening. So he files to request voc rehab. The district hearing at the Industrial Commission, the district hearing officer finds that he's not eligible or feasible, basing that on the fact that he had reached MMI, but more importantly, this is the most important thing, because that's not really relevant. The important part is that Saia had retired from his Painesville job, and that he had testified it was not a disability retirement. So I guess it was, he worked at Painesville Construction for years, and it was kind of like, maybe I'll retire now. And so ultimately, the SHO affirmed the decision, and then again, they based it in part on size. He lacked an intent to return to the workforce, and this was based on his testimony that he retired for non-disability reasons. So obviously he filed his mandamus, and then the mandamus, the 10th District, affirmed the decision of the Industrial Commission. And again, that's why, and it all basically because, again, we go back to that, under that feasibility, there must be a reasonable probability that the injured worker will benefit from voc rehab services. Well, the point is, the guy had testified, and he told people, hey, I retired from working for Painesville. So if you're retired, then you're retired, man. And so that's kind of, if you're saying you're retired, why would the state of Ohio pay for you to participate in voc rehab services if you're telling the state of Ohio that you're retired? Because if you say you're retired, then that implies that you're not interested in working, and that voc rehab services they're not going to lead you to continue to work. So that's why you don't whisper, you don't joke, you don't send telepathic messages that you're retiring. If you're going to retire and you have a workers' comp claim, and that's something you're thinking about, always keep that to yourself, because if you vocalize that, if that's documented, if you verbalize that intent, then that's going to possibly, as it did in this situation, it's going to come back and it's going to prevent you from either getting temporary total disability comp or participating in vocational rehabilitation, etc. And you don't know what you're going to do. Maybe when you get injured and you say, oh, I'm retiring, maybe that's a reaction. Maybe that's not really what you intend to do. But don't make the mistake. Don't vocalize that. And again, you always want to embrace this idea, returning to work. You return to work, you're going to keep the door open. And bottom line is, you might not be able to return to work. The reality of your conditions may prevent you from being able to return to work, and that's fine. But you want to have that be your goal, to return to work. So anyways, this is Attorney Kip from Malik & Malik. As I advise at the end of all these videos, don't do this workers' comp stuff alone. Talk to your friends, families, neighbors, coworkers, doctors. Figure out who they use as a workers' comp attorney. Talk to that attorney. If you need to talk to other attorneys, find somebody you like. Explain your situation. Get them involved. It's going to pay dividends. All right? Thanks for watching this video. And until next time, stay safe.